Good morning. It's so good to hear your voices. I'm the Reverend Rachel Hayes, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I use she, her pronouns. Welcome to you. Old friends and new, young and old, in the Zoom and in the sanctuary, you are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1,000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Tomorrow is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and in our service today we will talk about the idea of beloved community that was his dream for all people. We'll also have a time of spoken joys and sorrows today. You may notice that I take my mask off to speak and then put it back on again to sing. Any of our worship leaders who unmask have taken a COVID test this morning. And since the risk is still among us, I wanted to remind us of that. Our congregation has made the choice to prioritize the vulnerable rather than the comfortable with our masking policy. It's part of how we take care of one another.
Our opening words this morning are by the Reverend Teresa Nanan Soto. They are the lead minister of the First Unitarian Church of Oakland. There is a moment before dawn when the night is firmly in charge of the sky. There is no arguing with the opacity that holds both a fertile imagination and cover of destruction. Just hold on. There is the moment when the dream we share is newly born, wet and wriggling in our hands. Sometimes it's true that salvific futures look vulnerable and small before us. We remain unsure. Just hold on. Anything good was small at first. You know that Dr. King said, "I have a dream." It definitely was not the "I have a reality" speech. It was real in a different way that could be felt, that could be shared. Just they held on. That dreaming speech happened in August 1963. And you know what came before was April, a letter from Birmingham jail. One moment did inform the other, but the future being built could not be known with certitude. They held on. We gather, Unitarian Universalists, certain only of the power to be human, finding ourselves committed to keeping our word and being our covenant. And when we fail to keep our promises, we don't throw them away, labeled as impossible. We take up our courage, we begin again. We hold on. Sprinkled in the wind, we can hear the question, if we are not white supremacy shaped into religious robes and rituals, then who are we? We are present, both in attention and in the answer. We are here. We hold on. We contain multitudes, not just questions and contradictions, but also of possibilities. We continue to labor for the creation of community in which all of us, not just each, but every part of us, is welcome in our home of faith. We hold on.
As Maya lights our chalice, I invite you to say the chalice lighting words with me. We light this flame to invite a world of peace, where we heal the wounds, where we share what we have with one another, where justice is another word for relationship, and we listen for what love has to say. I invite you to rise, maybe in body, but definitely in spirit, to sing our opening hymn, Gathered Here. Okay, so as you settle into your seat, can you feel your seat under you, everybody? Settle into your seat and begin to think about what makes your life good. Everybody's life has some good things and some hard things. What do you need to have a good life? Any thoughts? Microphone. Yeah, some of us need a microphone. We need to hear our voices amplified by others, right? I can make a metaphor out of anything. So I think some things I need to have a good life are good food. Do you all think food is important? Okay. Aaliyah, what do you think? Friends. Yeah, having friends is important for a good life. Yeah. Alexa said family is important. Yeah. I might even say having good schools is important to having a good life. And being safe. What do you think, Maya?
Good teachers.
Good teachers? Yeah. We had family and friends. I would say just love. We need love in our lives to have a good life. Maybe a warm, safe house. Fairness. To know that you matter to the people around you. All of those things are important to me. Are there any more thoughts that you want to bring in? Yeah, okay. So, what would it be like to live in a world where everybody has everything they need to have a good life? Yeah, Alexa.
You know how Martin Luther King, he had that speech? I think it would kind of be like that speech coming true and then some more.
Like the speech coming true and then some more. It's not a plant. Wow. I think you are onto something, Alexa.
Well, I might be.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. Yeah. So do you think it would be happy to live in a world like that? Yeah.
There'd be less fighting.
Less fighting.
And also, less fighting and, even just, families. Me and my brother get into fights, there'd be less of that.
Yeah, even less fighting in families. Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think we should do to make our world more like that, where there's less fighting and people have what they need? I'm seeing some hands from Aaliyah and Alexa. What do you say?
Well, for starters, we need to work more on some of the things Martin Luther King said.
Yeah, we need to work on some of the things Martin Luther King said. Are you thinking of something in particular, or just like all of it? Okay. What are you thinking about, Aaliyah?
She says love.
Love. Yeah. So we should love one another, right? Is there anybody in specific we need to love? Do you want to say, or do you want Alexa to talk first? Yeah. We need to love our friends. Yeah. Alexa, what do you think?
We especially need to work on people that don't get, people that don't get lots of attention.
Yeah, we need to love people who don't get lots of attention. We need to not just take care of people who usually get taken care of, right?
And forget all of the people.
Yeah. I think that's really important, that it's not just taking care of people who have the most resources, but take care of people who don't have what they need. Yeah.
And there's lots of places that give like food that they don't need and things like that to people who don't have it.
Yeah. So I didn't plan to ask this question, but did anybody remember to bring peanut butter for the Survival Center this week? The Survival Center has asked us to specifically bring peanut butter to celebrate National Peanut Butter Day. All month, you have all month. And then they'll hand it out to people they bring food to. So that way everybody who needs peanut butter has enough peanut butter. Well, I think they give other food too. Yeah. Yeah, you can give the kind of thing that works for you and it'll go to the person who needs it. Yeah. Okay, so I think Alexa has given us a little bit of a preview of what Andrew's going to talk about. But Andrew, do you want to tell us about somebody?
So it's possible that Alexa's school already had their Martin Luther King Jr. assembly on Friday. Yeah, so they have an all-school meeting that is similar to church because they sing songs and talk about things that are important. And this week was their Martin Luther King Jr. celebration. So, my daughter's not a plant, as Sarah said. So we know, well, what is tomorrow? Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And now I'm wondering if anyone here knows who Martin Luther King Jr. was. Maya?
He was someone who helped to make everything fair.
Someone who helped to make everything fair. Does anyone know much about him? Yes, Alexa. He was a minister. So Martin Luther King Jr., he was born a long time ago, but not that long ago. So does anyone know if he was still alive today, how old he would be? Today's actually his birthday. 94 years old.
I know people that old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a long time ago. It was certainly a long time before I was born, but it wasn't so long ago that no one alive today knew him. And in fact, Martin Luther King Jr. went to the same seminary that I went to. He went to the Boston University School of Theology. And there was one professor there who was still teaching, who was in his, at the time, late 80s. We're going to read that, yeah, but you have to let me have it so I can read it. And he knew him. He had actually lived with him for a summer, and they had worked together. And that really kind of made it real to me that he was born a long time ago, but not that long ago. And so he was born in Atlanta, Georgia. And at the time he was born, segregation, which is making people of different races live in different places and go to different schools and eat in different restaurants, that wasn't only allowed, but it was actually the law. It was illegal in some places, in many places, to let people who were different races eat in the same places or go to the same schools. And King, who was black, saw that his family wasn't being treated fairly. And he dedicated his life to fighting that prejudice and trying to change the country for other people like him and for his children and for their children. So sometimes he did this by giving speeches. We heard a lot about that I Have a Dream speech. And he talked to these huge groups of people who would come to hear what he had to say on important topics. But he also fought for equality in a lot of other ways. Does anyone know any of those other ways? Alexa? So he led marches. That was one of the things I had. Does anyone know one of the other ways? An adult can answer this too. I see a hand back there. Voting rights. Sanitation workers. Wonder if anyone, he got arrested a lot. And he got arrested for breaking laws, but mostly always for breaking laws that were unjust or unfair laws. So he would specifically go and sit at restaurants where black people weren't allowed and wait for the police to come and arrest him to bring attention to this thing that was unfair. And so according to the King Center, he was arrested 29 times in his life. Most of those were breaking those laws on purpose. And sometimes it was for doing things that were like going just a tiny bit over the speed limit where most people would get a ticket, but the police didn't like him and they would arrest him. And then he also led those marches where thousands of people would get together and they would march down streets and they would block traffic. And that was another way to bring attention to those unfair rules. And so a lot of people really liked what Martin Luther King Jr. had to say, but a lot of people didn't. A lot of white people liked the rules the way they were, and they didn't want things to change. They wrongly believed that if more people were given the rights and privileges that they had, that they would have fewer privileges. And one of those people that didn't like him, they killed him when he was only 39 years old. And so today, we celebrate all of those things that Martin Luther King Jr. taught us. And we continue that work toward the world that he dreamed about. And we aren't there yet. But everything that we can do to fight against those unfair laws and rules and ideas is another move toward that fair world where everyone can have what they need to have those good lives that you all dreamed about just a few minutes ago.
Dr. King talked about this world that has not happened yet. Does anybody know the term? He called it beloved community. Can you all say that? beloved community, where everyone, black and white and all races, has what they need to have a good life. He spoke out for people who wanted to share that kind of world. And that's why we remember him this weekend, because we want that kind of world too. Okay, we're almost done up here, but I wanted to teach you a body prayer. And I invite you, kids and adults, to repeat each line after me and make movements, whatever you think the movements are that go with those words. Reach up for inspiration. Reach down to the grassroots. Stir the winds of change. Stomp out injustice. Amen.
So I'm going to invite the children to gather their things as the congregation sings us out with the words. Go, go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts and the light. Go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts and the light.
The minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta had a big shock last year when a congregant presented her with 2 framed letters. Thank you letters to the minister of her congregation in the 1960s from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and from his widow, Coretta Scott King. I invite you to listen to these letters read at the UU Congregation of Atlanta this year, and to listen specifically for the relationships between the Kings and the Atlanta UUs.
Dear Reverend Pickett, in the rush of events surrounding Selma in our Alabama voting project, I neglected to express my deep gratitude for your sponsorship of the dinner honoring me on January 26. Please accept this belated note of appreciation. I must confess that few events have warmed my heart as did this occasion. It was a testimonial not only to me, but to the greatness of the city of Atlanta, the South, the nation, and its ability to rise above the conflict of former generations and really experience that beloved community where all differences are reconciled and all hearts in harmony with the principles of our great democracy and the tenets of our Judeo-Christian heritage. Sincerely yours, Martin Luther King Jr.
Dear Reverend Eugene Pickett, thank you for your letter of October 24th, informing me of the contributions which you have received for the purpose of establishing a memorial to my husband. I am enclosing letters to the individuals you listed, and I would greatly appreciate if you would forward those to them. Please convey to the members of your congregation my deepest appreciation for their help at the time of my husband's death. Their concern and sympathy were demonstrated in many ways and made a tragic and confused period less trying for my family and me. It would have been impossible to provide for the many visitors in my home without the generosity of the members of the Atlanta Unitarian Church. The food, transportation, lodging which they provided will be remembered as a tangible demonstration of the brotherhood in action which the Unitarian Church has always stressed. Opening, sorting, and handling the tremendous amount of mail sent to my children and me would have truly been an insurmountable task without the help of the people who responded to the Unitarian Church's appeal. Through the years, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta has been a leader in bridging the gap between the white and black communities. My family and I will always remember how warmly and willingly you extended friendship and love during our most difficult hour. Please know that we will always be grateful. Sincerely yours, Coretta Scott King.
Jr. did not invent the concept of the beloved community. Those words came from the 19th century philosopher Josiah Royce, known among other things for his work on the ethics of loyalty. Community for Royce was where the lives of individuals found meaning. And for Royce, the beloved community was made of all people whose lives were dedicated to loyalty, truth, and reality. Royce was an advocate of nonviolence and, in his later years, a founding member of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, promoting peace and nonviolence at the outbreak of World War I. Royce died before King was born. By the time King was a graduate student, beloved community was an ideal of ideals. It was in the air at Boston University School of Theology. But King picked it up and made it a cornerstone of his message to the world. To King, beloved community is a society of peace, love, and justice achieved through nonviolence. We heard it in the letter to Reverend Pickett, where all differences are reconciled. King talks about beloved community the way the Gospels he preached talk about the kingdom of God as a future yet to be unveiled, a coming world of justice, love, and freedom. Christian theologians would call this a teleological principle, something that is defined by its end goal rather than the process of its becoming. Teleology is hard because we haven't gotten there yet. It's hard to imagine because we haven't seen it yet. The eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism, which our congregation adopted in 2021, and hundreds of congregations and Unitarian Universalist organizations have also adopted, uses this idea of beloved community. Journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural beloved community, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. It's interesting to me that the eighth principle locates the beloved community in a process. It's part of the journey towards spiritual wholeness. We participate in building it by dismantling racism and other oppressions. The eighth principle organizers define beloved community this way. Beloved community happens when people of diverse racial, ethnic, educational, class, gender, abilities, sexual orientation, backgrounds, identities come together in an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care that seeks to realize justice within the community and in the broader world. We've also included the phrase in our congregation's proposed covenant, which the Committee on Shared Ministries is leading us in studying. I hope you can participate in some of the post-service conversations they'll host throughout the winter and spring. The proposed covenant was adapted for our congregation from a covenant by James Vila Blake. And this is what it says. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its practice. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and justice in love, and to work toward the time and place where everyone's worth and dignity is honored by all in our world's beloved community. Beloved community is where everyone's worth and dignity is honored by all. Another really big goal that feels so far off. Beloved community, the ideal of ideals, the big goal of big goals. We fold our highest hopes into it. Loyalty, truth, reality, peace, love, justice, the opposite of racism, the opposite of oppression. I think it's really easy to get sucked into that teleological destination without a roadmap. And it's okay. We're on this road together. Dr. Bernice King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter and CEO of the King Center, reassures us we can create beloved community. It's not a utopia, but is realistic and achievable, a society of justice and love. It's not conflict-free, but shuns acquiescence to violence. The trick is to create it bit by bit, planting seeds of beloved community as we go. The activist, author, and movement educator Adrienne Marie Brown reminds us of the importance of fractals in movement work. She says, small is good, small is all, and as things are at the small, they become at the larger level. How can we, with our smallest increment choices, plant those seeds of beloved community? I know that I have felt beloved community around me at a dinner table, a gathering of vegans and diabetics and people who have food allergies, each with specific and sometimes contradictory needs, but where everyone had a beautiful, lovingly prepared meal, and no one was an afterthought or an exception. It didn't change the world. But it did change us, at least for a few hours. The Transforming Hearts Collective educators Michael Slack and Alex Capitan taught me that we don't create finite beloved communities, because if it has a wall, it's not beloved. But I do believe that we can create small instances of the larger beloved community, and that by doing so, we can realize the ideal, that we can experience it, learn from it, and bring others into the experience too. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote the letter to Reverend Pickett, it wasn't for overthrowing an oppressive regime. It was for sponsoring a dinner. That was a seed of beloved community to him. When Mrs. Coretta Scott King wrote the second letter we heard, she thanked the congregation for the practical support of her family and their guests after her husband's death. Things that may sound familiar to us who have given or received help through our caring circle. Rides, food, help sorting mail, and other unglamorous tasks done with great care. Where have you caught a glimmer of beloved community? Where have you seen love, justice, peace, truth as the guiding principle? What did you learn? And now, what do you have to share? We do these small things with full commitment to love and justice. And in doing so, we taste that beautiful, powerful, revolutionary, beloved community yet to come, where hearts and differences are reconciled, where love and peace and justice guide our way, where we end poverty and racism and militarism and all their iterations, which is another sermon for another day. But this year, today, I tell you that beloved community is real. I end my reflection with these words from Dr. King. This is where we are. Where do we go from here? First, we must massively assert our dignity and worth. We must stand up amidst a system that still oppresses and develop an unassailable and majestic sense of values. What is needed is a realization that power without love is reckless and abusive, that love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. And justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love. And this is what we must see as we move on. In acknowledgement that we've chosen to be on the way, I invite you to rise in body and spirit to sing the beautiful spiritual, "I'm on my way." Spirit of life, love, and connection, whom some know as God, some know as love, and some know as the sweetness inside the silence. We have come from the many places of our lives to show up to one another. May every hurt be healed. May every sorrow be met with care. May we know that each of us is loved and called to share that love with the world. Blessed be. Amen. Years ago, a mixed-race mine workers union sang a gospel song at its meetings. Along the way, parts of the tune were swapped out with a spiritual, you may know, no more auction block for me. In the 1940s, striking tobacco industry workers, mostly black women, began singing "We Will Overcome" at their meetings. The organizers at Highlander School, which has trained generations of civil rights activists, learned it from them. Pete Seeger changed it from "we will" to "we shall overcome." Dr. King heard Seeger sing the song in 1957. The song, as we know it, is deeply associated with the Highlander Center, which still trains civil rights activists, and with the labor and civil rights movements. I invite you to sing it to one another as a benediction this morning, the kind of blessing that gets followed up with action.